All right, lads. I'll give you Blackbeard's honest opinion. You ask me, can this new captain promise you a life of prizes, plunder, and adventure? Aye. For amongst all the gentlemen of fortune sailing these West Indies, he ranks amongst the most clever. There was a time when I thought myself the deadliest scourge of these seas. But this man is a fearsome dog that feeds off trouble and turmoil. I seen him clear the deck of a Spanish galleon like it were nothing. Fighting like a devil, dressed as a man. And he's a canny one. Knows his way round every crag and crevice of these islands. So if it's fortune and adventure you seek, then Captain Edward Kenway's your man. Only, don't meddle in his private affairs. For there's more mystery to that man than even I dare ask.
Hello and welcome to another stream of Black Flag, the final phase of celebrating the 10th anniversary, a story focus. Going to jump back into it. We left when we were still in present day. This is the part of the game where you get pulled out of the Animus automatically. And we've given the video to Rebecca, who's undercover in Abstergo Entertainment. She's pretending to be a courier, and we've given her the package, the video, that the main character in present day had actually hacked and unlocked and obtained, and the game wants us to go back into the Animus. I've had a test to see if there's any new dialogue from the NPCs in present day yet, but there hasn't been. The only real change based on what's happened in the memories of Edward is the mentioning of the observatory in the story has changed the sort of like imagery that appears on certain televisions. In this part of the building, though, Abstergo Entertainment, on the screens, it's not showing that particular video. It's showing this video that we've already covered in, I think it was the first stream as part of this playthrough, reading about all that kind of stuff. Since we're actually in present day in a fourth section, and we've been given the ability to enter level 1 areas, what I want to do before I jump back into the Animus is hack into more of these computers and do the puzzles and unlock some stuff. Okay, so Great Minds in History, Commission number 2. I will read that eventually, but I want to wait till I've got these collected in order. Okay, so let's make another thing in my notepad. Alright, so this was Great Minds. Commission to Rodrigo. Alright, so I'll be reading about this once I get them in order. Hey there, Stan. Welcome on in. You know this guy, he is Rod Borgia. Yeah, I definitely don't think I want to be associated with the Borgia family, thanks. How's it going, Stan?
Hey, Dad.
Alright, I want to listen to those in order as well. So we have Subject 17, Memo 3, Stan, he's a different guy. Yeah, you are. That's it. Very different. You came up with a Doctor Who joke yesterday. You did? Alright. What would a Dalek say if he is short on time?
Projet échantillon 17. Support to the second floor sample 17 project.
And that was the voice of Amber Goldfarb. That is Aveline, indeed. And there's her IMDb. What would a Dalek say if he is short on time? Exterminate. I don't know. What would a Dalek say if they're short on time? Exterminate. Nice one. a shame we can't get a coffee from Sean. Alright, so on this level we have level 2 and level 3 doors. Yes, that's level 3. Same with that. You don't get level 3 access until the end of the game. Hey Game God, you blame me for making you watch AC content? Ubisoft should pay me. Stan, it would be so cool if you could buy coffee from him. It really would. It would also allow for some more conversations with him. Stan, you're guilty. How do you plead? Not saying anything until I get legal counsel. Olivier Garneau, I know you're in there. I need to tell you something. I really would like to play Watch Dogs. I was actually thinking of doing another playthrough of it before the year ended, but I don't have the PlayStation version, because when I played the PlayStation version, I mean, if I wanted to play the game myself without streaming it, then I could just load up my Xbox and play it, but as far as streaming things goes, I don't have Watch Dogs 1 on the PlayStation 5. The only reason I was able to actually stream it on the PlayStation earlier this year was because it was on PlayStation Plus, but it's been taken off that now. The Sample 17 project. His name was Desmond Miles. I'll have you know, Abstergo. Giving people numbers. The only number I'd want to be given is 007. Abstergo.
Assistance au niveau 2, projet échantillon 17. Support to the second floor, sample 17 project.
I hope Amber does another AC game in the future. The last one that she did was, I think it was Syndicate.
Coffee was better in the old building.
Yeah, Syndicate. She played the ice cream vendor and some of the Blighters' voices. Okay, so we've done the hacking on the areas that we can actually access with our security clearance at level 1. And there's post-it notes. I may as well collect these now. I'm not going to read them yet though, until I get the whole lot of them. Then I can read them one after the other.
We were able to keep a constant stream.
Mirabeau was able to keep a constant stream.
Amazing.
And this is through existing broadband networks, straight into people's homes.
Actually, no, that's not him. That's Alan Golum, I think. Sorry if I'm pronouncing his last name wrong. He also plays Clay Kazmarek's father in the Lost Archives DLC for Revelations. Plus, he's also a few henchmen in the Splinter Cell games as well.
God, I wish I was researching.
And here we have the Lawrence Prinz dude. It's like...
And that was the end of it. I can't be responsible for other people's incompetence.
Yeah. Their incompetence is their own fault. But then again, if you're the one who hired them, if you knew that they were incompetent when you were hiring them, then maybe that's on you. Okay, so we've done what we need to do in this part of the present day story. This is the second time that the game takes you out of the Animus automatically. I've gone around and I've collected all the post-it notes that are currently here, and if I haven't gotten them all, it doesn't matter, because I'm not reading them all until I get them all anyway. And we only have security level 1 clearance. What I want to do, though, is just double-check we don't have anything else in the messages there. Nope. And diary entry. No, so... And files. Still got stuff to cover. But I want to wait till I have them in order, like Desmond's recordings and things like that. So let us go back into the past.
Oi. Where you going, the market?
No, My parents have asked me to come live with them, and I'd like to.
Oh, what do you mean, live with them? You live here with me.
I'm sorry, Edward, but my father is right. You had a decent wage when you worked the farm. Why can you not be satisfied with that? With me?
Decent wage? That job was near as, damn it, to robbery. You want to be married to a peasant the whole of your life?
All right, Edward. All right.
You leave now, Caroline. You'll never know what's coming to us. Caroline! Caroline!
Okay, so I want to stop that there. So obviously, we have Caroline deciding that she's going to move back with her parents, and even though she's still married to Edward at this point, she wants to go back and live with her parents again. And of course, you know, Edward is wanting her to stay. Something that I will say that is good here for Edward is the fact that he doesn't grab her arm or try to stop her from leaving. He actually lets her go, which I think is something that's good to point out, because while he is upset at the fact that she's leaving and he is angry, he's not taking it out on her. Like, he's not grabbing her or shaking her or slapping her face and saying, no, you're going to stay here with me, or anything like that. He still lets her actually just go. Caroline is kind of like, you know, why can't you be satisfied with, you know, working for a wage, and why can't you be satisfied with me? While money is important, the key bit of dialogue from Caroline's perspective that is more important to focus on is when she says, why can't you be satisfied with me? Because Caroline is obviously combining the fact that because Edward is living with her and because he wants to become massively rich, but she just wants to be with someone who is going to be able to still have money coming in and still provide and all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, she's also wanting someone that wants to be with her. And you could say that, you know, combining the two together is a bad thing for her to do on her part, and that it should be a separate thing, that, you know, Edward isn't dissatisfied with her, he's dissatisfied with the situation. And Edward doesn't obviously say that, so if that's something that he's actually feeling, he's not saying anything to that effect, you know, and he completely sort of like ignores what she said on the second part, which was, why can't you be satisfied with me? And continues on about his tirade about wanting to, you know, not be living like a peasant and all that kind of stuff. But what's really important to Caroline, more than the money and everything like that, is Edward. And she feels that not only is he dissatisfied with the amount of money that they have and, you know, where they're living and what they're living under and all that kind of stuff, that he's also dissatisfied with her. And that's something that is very important for her character, and I think it's something important to point out as well, because Caroline is just as important to the story as any other character that is part of the story is, and especially related to Edward's life as well. And this whole argument that they have is probably one of the things that spurred him a bit further into digging in and wanting to just do what he feels is the best way to get rich and what he wants and all that kind of stuff. And at this point, because there is another flashback that we see that takes place after this point as well, where he goes to visit her when she's at her parents' to talk to her. But at this point, they've argued, well, it's more like an argument in terms of like from Edward's side, because he's gotten, upset about the fact that she's leaving. But as I said, it's a good thing that he lets her leave, because that helps his character, because one of the things with this game is that Edward, being a pirate, it's very easy to just write him one-dimensionally as a pirate and make him to be someone that is completely unlikable at all, that there's no redeeming qualities for him and things like that. And so I'm glad that they made the decision to not make Edward someone that is going to be violent, towards Caroline and things like that. Because if he was, then that would be a really difficult kind of thing to remedy with his redemption arc as well. But yeah, Caroline's perspective is, why can't you be satisfied with the wage that you were getting, and why can't you be satisfied with me? And Edward is obviously so angry that he doesn't even stop to think about the fact that Caroline is thinking that he's also dissatisfied with her. And because he doesn't say that, it will probably be something where if that's what she's feeling, then it wouldn't help with Edward not even acknowledging that as well. But in a way, when you think about it too, Edward is a character, because his sights are set so much on becoming rich, he's not looking at what's directly in front of him. He's looking beyond the horizon. It actually makes me think, it's not exactly the same, but it makes me think of Luke Skywalker and what Yoda says about Luke in Empire Strikes Back. Just trying to think what the actual quote is. So Yoda is saying like, "This one a long time have I watched, always his mind on where, never his mind on where he was, what he was doing." Essentially, looking so far into the horizon, not actually noticing what is directly in front and focusing on that. Because obviously it's good to focus on the end goal of something, but you also need to focus on what's right in front of you. And Edward is so concentrating on the horizon of, I want to be rich, I want to be rich, I want to get, all this money for us and all that kind of stuff. I want my esteem in the eyes of others to be very high, so that they think highly of me and all that kind of stuff. And Caroline's like, "But Edward, what about me here?" And Edward's like, "But can't, the horizon, there's, So I feel very much for Caroline in this moment. I don't hate Edward or anything, but in this moment, in that scene, you really feel for Caroline and her perspective on things, because it's like, yeah, why can't you be satisfied with that wage? Why can't you be satisfied with me? And what's more important to her is, their relationship. Whereas it would seem, and because Edward doesn't say otherwise, it would seem that he's more concerned about other stuff and not really her that much. And in a way, it might make her feel like, well, you don't need me in your life then, if that's the only thing that you appreciate or that you want is to get that goal. If you don't also want me to be a part of your life, then I'll just go, kind of thing.
Kid.
Wake up, Kenway.
What's that about?
He left this morning with the galleon. As faith, we'll discover a good use for this old cove ourselves.
Aye, we'll make something of it in time. We could keep a fleet here if we liked. And with a bit of fixing up, it'd be a decent place to call home. Might even convince my wife to come one day.
You're married, are you?
In God's eyes, I am. She left me some time ago.
Even so, keep that fact hid away. Most of these pirates don't respect a man with higher commitments than rum and plunder.
Upon mine honor. Let me know if you find anything.
Okay, so that cutscene, I was talking earlier in the playthrough about how Benjamin Hornigold says at one point to Edward, and I'm paraphrasing, I'm not actually quoting it word for word, but just the gist of it. Benjamin Hornigold is kind of like to Edward, stop thinking about that woman you have back at home. You could have any woman here and now. Why bother with her? And Edward deflects any kind of feelings he might be having in that moment of not wanting to think about that stuff by making light of the situation and saying something along the lines of, and here I thought I was in the company of, scoundrels and all that kind of stuff. And I was talking in that cutscene when I was pausing it about how Benjamin Hornigold may not know that Edward is actually married, and that James Kidd, aka Mary Read, doesn't actually know that he's married until he mentions Caroline in that cutscene that we just saw now. And the way that that Mary reacts to that news and that information is genuine for someone who doesn't know information beforehand. So I definitely feel strongly that she didn't know that Edward was married, and that based on her comments when she says, essentially that these, don't keep that fact hidden away from these pirates. They don't have any goals above, rum and all that kind of, any commitment, behind rum and that. And Edward is also talking about how, in God's eyes, we're still married, but she left me some time ago as well. And I don't know back in this time period about marriages and what one had to do to separate, if you could even separate, and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of marriage from a religious perspective, irrespective of whether it was an actual legal thing in the eyes of the law, in terms of the person's religion, it was legal in the sense that if it was done with the blessing of a higher power like God or something, in his eyes, it would be a legal thing. You know what I mean? Obviously, the definition of what it means to get married is definitely different and all that kind of stuff. But when Edward says, in God's eyes, I am, I'm assuming, this is just my assumption, I'm assuming that is, you could translate that as they're still actually married, but they've separated a long time ago. They haven't formally gone through any kind of divorce or anything like that. That's what I think Edward is basically meaning when he says, in God's eyes, we're still married, but she left me some time ago, kind of thing. And on Edward's part there, he's still, and I mean, it's very juxtaposed against the cutscene that we just saw, the flashback, right? I was talking in that flashback previously how Caroline was like to Edward, why can't you be satisfied with that wage that you were getting? Why can't you be satisfied with me? And Edward completely ignores the question that she asks about being satisfied with her, and completely keeps on focusing on the other aspect. Pardon me. And I was talking about how Edward, if he's thinking that she actually is important to him, but he's not telling her, then I would understand that he might be, that she might feel that way because he hasn't actually said otherwise to her. If you thought about the cutscene differently, if Caroline had said, why can't you be satisfied with the wage? Why can't you be satisfied with me? If Edward paused for a second and recognized what she had said, and then said something like, Caroline, it's not you. That is why, I want more for us. I am happy with you. You're the woman that I want to live with for the rest of my life. I just feel that in terms of our financial situation, and he wouldn't use these words, obviously, but this kind of just saying this kind of thing. But Edward doesn't say anything like that. So for all Caroline knows, he doesn't care about her. He just cares about the money side of things. And so therefore her leaving is going to be of no worry for him, ultimately in the long run. But in this cutscene that we see, which of course is in present time from Edward's perspective, whereas that flashback sequence was in the past, Edward and how he responds and talks to Mary in this cutscene about the fact that he's still married in God's eyes, with Caroline, but she left him some time ago. And he also mentioned something about wanting to still have her come, back into his life, and all that kind of stuff, which unfortunately doesn't happen. But that says to me that Edward does, if not back in that flashback scene, but well and truly by this point has, really been wanting Caroline back in his life, but he's still tied to wanting to get riches, and so that's what's keeping him there. Otherwise, he would have just been like, right, that's enough. I've been living this life for too long. I need to go back to England and I need to mend things with my wife. But he doesn't do that, though, of course. And by the time he is ready to go and do that kind of thing, he unfortunately finds out that she's died and that she was pregnant, which he didn't know. So I'm assuming that Caroline didn't tell him before he left that she was pregnant. That she would have probably most likely wanted to keep that from him because of the whole thing of, him wanting more than just, the life that he had and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's very interesting how they have that flashback scene where Edward is talking about wanting to get all the riches and stuff, and that he's, not even noticing that Caroline is, basically saying, why can't you be satisfied with me as well as be satisfied with what wages you get? And Edward ignoring that. Juxtaposed against this cutscene we just saw now where he talks to Mary about being married and that he wants her to come back into his life. And then Mary's like, about don't let the other pirates know because they don't have any commitment higher than rum and, money. Which is ironic because when you think about the commitment that Edward made to be married to his wife versus the commitment he's made to the life of getting money, Edward has actually done that very thing. He's put that above. He's put that commitment to getting rich above the commitment to his wife. And so it's understandable that Caroline would think that, okay, you're not satisfied with me either, so that must mean that you're not saying anything, you're not telling me any different, so I'm just going to assume, and that's the whole thing about human interactions. And it's something that can be dangerous because sometimes people don't say what they're fully what they're thinking because they might be overridden with emotion. And so there might be key pieces of information that if they had mentioned at the time, it might have helped the other person gain a bit more understanding of what they were actually thinking. But because the person is so caught up in their emotions, they might not think to mention that information. And of course, the person can only go off what information they've been given. But at the same time, humans try to fill in the gaps and try to assume things sometimes too, as well. But it just adds a level of realism to it, with that whole scenario with Edward and Caroline. Stan, uses cheat engine for money very early in the game. Edward, well, where did all this money come from? I should go back to England to Caroline. Credits for all. Yeah, if only. If only, Stan. If only that's how it happened. Like in Red Dead Redemption 2, when you have Arthur with like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and then Dutch is like, we need money. I think some people in IRL, when they're playing Red Dead 2, have actually put like, 25,000 or more dollars into the gang's camp, and the dialogue of still in the story is still Dutch saying, we need more money. It's like, Dutch, you've got more money to move to Tahiti 10 times over. Hello, Sheila. Welcome on in. Good morning. It's going really, really well, thank you. I hope you are going well too. Stan, he's also drunk in that scene. Maybe that has an effect as well. That's true. Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that could be a factor. I never actually thought about that before. But yeah, you're right. That could definitely be something that affected that too. You going good, Shillerlock? That's excellent. I'm glad to hear that. I just paused the cutscene. Well, it's not really a cutscene now. It's in gameplay. But if you don't move straight away, it starts throwing up the message of, reduce distance to target, which is, James Kidd. So I'll just pause it here. But just going over some things we finished a little bit of present day stuff, because that's where I left things at the end of yesterday's stream. We're in present day territory, so now I've gone back into Edward's memories, and this is what we're currently up to. We've now taken over Ducasa's island.
Edward, over here. I found something.
Let's hang back a bit and see what dialogue might happen if we don't go there straight away.
Odd-looking things, aren't they? Old and weathered.
Is this what they call Mayan? Or is it Aztec?
Are you good with riddles, Edward? Puzzles and ponderings and the like?
No worse than the next man, why?
I think you've a natural gift for it. The way you think and work. The way you understand the world.
Well, I don't know about that. You're talking in riddles now and I don't understand a word.
Clamber on top of this thing here, will you? Help me solve something.
Okay, so it's interesting because basically there's something about Edward that Mary has picked up on that speaks to his perception, how he sees things in the world. And Mary, in this moment, is trying to test Edward, not from a standpoint of trying to be antagonistic, but just testing to see if a hunch that she has is right about Edward. And at this point, we as the player know that Edward has eagle vision. So it means that he has Isu DNA in his own blood, which means he is able to access eagle vision. And this is one of my favorite moments in the game, especially from things that form why this is definitely an Assassin's Creed game and not simply just a pirate game, as some people pass it off as, or underappreciate it as. It's definitely an Assassin's Creed game. And one of the big elements of Assassin's Creed from day one has been eagle vision. It's a strong part of not only the characters, but it's also part of the narrative, and it's also very important. Not every single assassin has eagle vision. Not every single human can access it. If you have any Isu traces of blood in your DNA, depending on how strong that DNA or that Isu blood is in your own DNA, will probably determine how easy it is for you or how hard it is for you to actually access eagle vision. As the games have gone on, from a gameplay perspective, they've changed how eagle vision works and the ins and outs of it. And some of that can be explained in universe as well with certain characters. For example, Arno in Unity. Gameplay-wise, from that perspective, they made it that when you use eagle vision, you can't just constantly keep it active and go about your business. Once you press the button to use eagle vision, it'll stay on for a little bit, but then it'll turn off, and there's a cooldown that you need to wait for until you can actually activate it again. That's a gameplay thing. They did that for gameplay purposes. So what about Arno as a character then? Well, and this is a theory, my theory is that because Arno isn't potentially as strong in eagle vision as some others are, that maybe for him, because he needs to really, really concentrate, because Bellic in the prison, when he realizes that Arno has the ability to see the scratchings on the walls and all that kind of stuff, he knows and realizes that Arno has eagle vision. So he tells Arno to concentrate. The only thing that I can think of that would shoot holes through that theory is the fact that, well, how come Arno can literally see the memories of the person he's killed, and all that kind of stuff? And if that's not some kind of eagle vision perception to be able to do that, and if that's something that not all assassins have been able to do, then wouldn't that mean that Arno is in many ways stronger with eagle vision than some of the other protagonists are, despite the weakness of the cooldown? So I think that's a situation where the gameplay reason for making it a cooldown thing can't 100% be smoothed over in universe as an explanation as to why that's the thing. And that's something that the series has struggled with a lot nowadays, is what is simply gameplay reasoning for things to be the way that they are, and what's actually in-universe reasoning for why things are what they are. And I think Odyssey is probably the game in the series that is the one that most messes up the balance between the two, because it's very, very difficult to ascertain what is actually only gameplay reasoning for Cassandra, Alexis being able to do these things, and what is actually in-universe reasoning as well. But that's a whole other thing, because some people say, well, it's the spear. Because the spear has all this power, it means that they can basically make the character able to do whatever they want, because the spear is making them do it, and all that kind of stuff. But I feel that's like a very lazy explanation for things. It's like in Star Wars. It's like, how come that character could do that, but the other character couldn't? It's just the Force. Yeah, but what about it? It's just the Force. The Force, you can do anything, The Force can make your hand, turn into a flower if it wants to, No, it can't. Yes, it can. Why? Because it's the Force. The Force, they can do that. So when you come up with something for a universe that is like a technology or a magical power, you still need to add limits to it. You still need to make certain things about it not possible, even though it's a magical thing, Anyway, getting back to what's going to happen here, Mary is testing Edward's perception skills, because there's something about the way that he carries himself. Now, you've got to remember, too, that a part of an assassin's job is to observe. And if someone who is an assassin is good at observing things, they're good at picking up on different things. And the other thing is, too, Mary herself, and we never see her use it, but I would definitely dare say that there's a 99.9% chance that she has eagle vision as well. So she kind of would know what signs to see in someone that can display similar, ability and all that kind of stuff. So she's testing Edward here, and the other reason is she knows that he's seen the sage. Hang on, I'm just got to think about that. Does she know? Sometimes it's hard to remember because I know, but does the character know? I don't know if she knows yet about that side of things, if he's seen the sage. Anyway, she detects in something about Edward that gives her the impression that he must, or that he potentially could have eagle vision. And so that's what she's going to test here. And she does mention something about, for some it's comes natural. I'm paraphrasing here, I can't remember the exact words, but she says that for some it can come natural and very easy. For others it takes years to tease out. So that right there is something that you could say confirms that there are different levels of eagle vision that people can have, and there's different, like some people it's easy for them to go into eagle vision. For others, it takes a bit to actually learn that skill as well. Sheila, not to forget that Caroline's father was always against the marriage because of prejudices, and Caroline could now see that her father was right. That's true. Yeah, because her family wanted her to marry some guy. It was already arranged, or that was the one that they had hoped that she would marry, and they were obviously trying to push for her to marry, but she marries Edward instead, and so that obviously rubs them the wrong way as well. So you're definitely right there too, Sheila. That's definitely something that Caroline comes to realize as well. What is a musician's favorite vegetable? Bits. Good one, Mr. Goethe. Thank you so much. Hope it's going well. Thanks for the lurk, Harbinger. Sheila, it makes a lot of sense that Arno can see his victim's past. The sixth sense Anisu had was to see through time. His talent was just far stronger on this sixth sense than on eagle vision. Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing too, I guess, as well. That it's not just purely and simply eagle vision that is something giving these characters certain skills and perceptions that others might not have as well. But that is a kind of cool thing, and it makes me think of Revelations, how Ezio's eagle vision is different because he can actually see where enemies have walked and their pathing and all that kind of stuff, and can see, the ghosts of different stuff in that respect. Whereas in the previous two games, he couldn't see the footprints of the enemies and stuff in eagle vision. Like, he could see ghosts and things, because if you go back to Monteriggioni in AC2, in the part of the story where it's the bonfire of the vanities, if you go back to the palazzo that the Auditores owned, you can see the ghosts of Federico and Giovanni and Petruchio. But you can also see the ghosts of his mother and sister, who aren't obviously dead as well. But it's definitely interesting having characters that have different levels of, I guess, perception with their eagle vision and all that kind of stuff as well.
Concentrate and focus all your senses. Look past shadow and sound, deep into matter, until you see and hear a kind of shimmering.
A shimmering?
You understand?
I think so. I've seen its like before, glowing like moonlight on the ocean.
Just want to wait a bit for any dialogue.
Ah, right. I know this feeling. I have since I was a lad. It's like using every sense at once, isn't it? To see sounds and hear shapes. Quite a combination.
Go on, man. Focus. Look through the darkness.
Not activating eagle vision straight away caused a glitch where Mary's comments about the eagle vision actually didn't happen. I mean, I swear she says it after using eagle vision, not interacting with the thing.
All your senses. Look past shadow and sound, deep into matter, until you see and hear a kind of shimmering.
A shimmering?
You understand?
I think so. I've seen its like before, glowing like moonlight on the ocean.
Ah, right. I know this feeling. I have since I was a lad. It's like using every sense at once, isn't it? To see sounds and hear shapes. Quite a combination.
Or maybe she doesn't.
Go on, man. Focus.
Maybe
Look through the darkness.
maybe I'm thinking it because I don't normally focus on when it happens, so I just am thinking that it happens after you go out of Eagle Vision, that she says that stuff, but she probably just says it after doing this interaction thing.
Every man and woman on this earth has in them a kind of intuition hidden deep away.
I've had this sense most of my life. Only I thought it was related in some way to my dreaming, or the like.
Most never find it. Others, it takes years to tease out. But for a rare few, it comes as natural as breathing. What you feel is the light of life, of living things past and present. The residue of vitality, come and gone. Any man's senses can be tuned well past what he's born with, if he tries.
I've always really liked the way that Eagle Vision is described by Edward and Mary here as well. How Edward says something along the lines of, to see sounds and hear shapes. Now think about that for a second. Imagine not just being able to hear a sound, but actually see a sound. So when someone bashes something against something, imagine you're not seeing the things being bashed against each other, you're simply seeing the actual sound as it happens. Now imagine you see something, but you don't just see something, you hear it. And you don't just hear it because it's emanating some kind of sound, but you only perceive it through sound. You don't actually perceive it through sight. It's a very sort of like surreal thing to think about. Because obviously when we think about seeing things, we are thinking about our eyes detecting something that we see that is actually there. And so we would say we saw that. We wouldn't look at a dog and say, I heard that dog. I mean, you might have heard the dog before, but what I'm saying is if you're isolating just seeing the dog in this example, then you wouldn't say, oh, I'm hearing a dog right now. You know, you'd say, I'm seeing a dog right now, I'm looking at them. And if you heard something, you would say, I heard this crash. You wouldn't say, I saw this crash, unless you... It's kind of hard to come up with examples sometimes, but essentially, imagine if instead of hearing things that you saw, instead of hearing things that you heard, you actually saw them. And what if you were, seeing things but hearing them instead as well? So that dialogue, see sounds and hear shapes. And then you've got, Mary talking about how it's like the light of life, of living things past and present, the residue of vitality come and gone. And I think there's a poetic aspect to how she describes that as well, which I really appreciate too. Hey there, Babini. Hello, AC. Our hero claims a warrior's heart. So what's that from, AC? Babini, it's like saying you heard that tree or you see that melody. Yeah. So imagine that, and I think there's some people who actually see sounds as something, whether they're actually seeing it or it's just their mind conjuring up an image in their field of view. I don't know, but it's definitely interesting, and when people are told to look at something and describe what color it is, sometimes people come up with different colors and stuff. AC, I tell you, the Dragonborns come. So it's from Skyrim. Okay. Yeah, I've only played that game once all the way through, so I wasn't sure where that came from.
You are a gifted man, Edward.
Has a strange look. Is it worth something?
Nothing you can spend. But if you find all of them, it'll lead to something grand.
How many?
A few dozen, I think. This way. I've something else to show you.
Oh, it goes into that map anyway. Oh, that's good. Okay, so Mary has confirmed that Edward has eagle vision, and the reason why Mary knows about the Mayan keystone that Edward has picked up is, of course, because the location for where you put all these keystones into to unlock something is actually on the island where the assassins are, in Tulum. So that's why she already knows about these things. And she, I guess, also knows that to find those, one needs to have good perception skills and, put two and two together and obviously confirm that Edward has eagle vision. This comes in handy because later, this is probably one of the things that you could say saves Edward from being killed by the assassins, is the fact that he has the sense. And Mary Read says to Artabai, he has the sense, mentor, meaning the eagle vision as well. So that's how Mary already knows what these keystones are, that it leads to something grand. But she doesn't know what that is behind the door, but she and the other assassins would assume that it's something, valuable because it's behind a door that's locked. And you need these special keystones to actually open it up as well. AC, believe, believe, the Dragonborn comes. The Dragonborn. Fuzro Da! Babini, so are we playing these in order, or have you played the series in entirety once? So I've been playing AC games since 2008. Assassin's Creed 1 was the first game I played. And I've played all the games every year at least once since they came out, with the exception for Black Flag, Unity, and Syndicate, because I was waiting to get an Xbox One, and I didn't want to play Syndicate or Unity first before playing Black Flag. So I waited until I got my Xbox One, which was in 2016. So at that point, Black Flag, Unity, and Origins was out. So I played them back to back for the first time in 2016. And so I've played each of those games once a year since 2016. And then Origins I've played at least once a year since 2017. Same with Odyssey since 2018. Same with Valhalla since 2020. And I've done 2 playthroughs of Mirage already. One was to just test it offline if I liked it. And then the other playthrough was when I streamed it as well. And I didn't play Liberation until 2018, but I've been playing Liberation at least once a year since 2018 as well. So yeah, definitely not new to the series or anything like that. And celebrating this game's 10th anniversary, I wanted to do more than just one playthrough. So I've ended up doing multiple ones, and this is the final phase of celebrating the 10th anniversary.
I found something else just here. I think you'll take to this secret much faster.
Now this has the makings of a mystery.
It's good, innit? Only wait till you see what lies at the end. Here we are. What do you think?
I think Monsieur Ducasse was a man of many secrets.
Aye, and look here. A solid staircase leading God knows where. What do you suppose lies at the top?
From what I knew of Ducasse, I wouldn't be surprised to find eclectic instruments of torture and villainy. An Iron Maiden or a collection of thumbscrews.
Or a pair of anguish.
There we go. That's the dialogue I was hoping wasn't going to be skipped. Babini, nice, you love it. I'm a true AC fan, but I bet I can tell you some stuff that will surprise you. Well, that's the thing. There's so many games, there's so many comics and novels and all that kind of stuff. So undoubtedly, there's things I don't know. There's probably some things that I've forgotten as well. But I mainly have stuck to the games, and I've seen the movie, but I haven't read any of the comics. And the only books I've read were up until Revelations. So I haven't read any of the novels that came out after Revelations did, except for Secret Crusade, because I think that came out after Revelations was released. Stan, so speaking of Revelations, would you like to hear a cool fact about the Hagia Sophia? And what's that, Stan?
Not a nice way to kick off. But that is some damn fine gear.
Try the key you took from Ducasse.
That's one. Only 4 left.
Aye. It might be that these 4 Templars have them. See the names here? They've been sent to kill these 4 targets.
Hang me, that's the map I sold to Governor Torres in Havana.
Yes, I'm glad I was able to time it to actually get this shot frozen. Okay. This look that Mary is giving Edward, he doesn't notice, so he doesn't realize that Mary understandably has some stake in hearing this information and cause to be giving him that look. And it's definitely a look of someone who is realizing that something that Edward has done has caused a domino effect, i.e. put the assassins in a dangerous position, whereas before they were the ones that were or had the high ground, so to speak. And so this look that Mary is giving Edward, he's lucky that she doesn't, kill him, because she well and truly could have, decided, hey, he's really fucked things up for us, so kill us. But there's something about Edward that she sees, and that's one of the reasons why she doesn't. And she gives him a chance here too. Like, she's going to say something along the lines of, don't you think you should warn them then, and all that kind of stuff. But this look is something that passes over her face only temporarily, but Edward doesn't actually notice that. And Duncan Walpole, of course, was the assassin who was betraying the assassins and bringing the map and the letters and the glass vial to the Templars. And Edward only doing it because he wants some money, not because he had any personal grievances against the assassins or anything like that. He didn't even know that they existed until he found out about them. Same with the Templars. But Edward decided to carry out the mission that Duncan was going with, because Edward wanted to get money out of it. He thought that he could get a lot of money reward for doing this and potentially get, heaps of money, but he ends up not. Anyway, this map is the one that he gave, and him admitting that he was the one that actually gave them this is new information that Mary didn't know yet, and now actually knows. Sheila, you like to wear the Mayan armor in the end of the game. You can't get it until Mary has died in prison, so you like to imagine that this armor is what Mary has left for Edward. That's a good way of putting it. Never actually thought of it that way. That's really cool. That's what I like as well. Having different sort of like ways to approach stuff, both in terms of like what you choose to do in a route through a level, but also things like outfits. Like some people might have a character wear a certain outfit during a certain part of the story because they know what part of the story is going to happen, and so they want what outfit the character's wearing to reflect that. I do that with Red Dead Redemption 2 a lot. Usually I have Arthur wear clothing that is a bit light, but is sort of like not 100% what you would consider someone who's quote-unquote good to wear. And then as the game goes on and Arthur sort of changes, I actually have him... no, sorry, the other way around. I have him wear darker colors and be wearing like overcoats and all that kind of stuff. And then towards the end of the game, I have him wearing lighter clothes and being a bit more sort of like... I don't know what the right word to use is, but I like to sort of change what he's wearing depending on what part of the story is happening. Babini, what if you told me that AC Valhalla was teased and hinted towards at multiple points during the Ezio's trilogy? Well, any connections that are in Valhalla that tie back to a lot of the games, a lot of the reason why they tied it back is because of those elements being there already as well. So it would be definitely not surprising to know that there's elements in the earlier games that they actually call back to in Valhalla. And in that perspective, you could say that they were foreshadowing things, but they weren't created for that purpose at that time to foreshadow what we eventually got in Valhalla. It's like conspiracy theories, or it's like it's like predictions. Is someone predicting something because they had pre-knowledge that it would happen, or are they just predicting something that later on was just something that could be tied back to that as well? So yeah, I'm definitely not surprised if there's anything in the other games that references back, like that gets referenced back to by Valhalla. Stan, there are 3 burial sites in there. One of them is Enrico Dandolo, Doge of Venice. Second is an Ottoman Sultan. And third one is Glee the cat, who was born and lived in there, entertained tourists and became very famous until he died in 2020. Wow, I didn't know that about the Hagia Sophia. That's cool, Stan. Doge of Venice. Ottoman Sultan. So you don't think Valhalla was pitched until very recently? Yeah, it's not something that they would have... Like, it's not something that they would have sat down and said, right, in the year 2020, we're going to release a game called Valhalla that's about Vikings, and we're going to make sure that we put this, this, and this in that game because we've already put it in this game and that kind of stuff. But it's more like, hey, what if in Valhalla we have callbacks to things that happened in the previous games in the series as kind of like connective tissue, but also having it be like an homage or paying tribute to those things. Babini, for example, Sean found out that he had a direct Viking ancestry in Brotherhood. In AC2 we see Norse symbolism in the glyphs. In AC1 we saw that there is a trio of inseparable circles, which is Norse symbolism once more. Yeah. So they definitely would have been putting things in those games that were about Vikings. But I don't think that the story of Valhalla was constructed before that early. But yeah, Valhalla has a lot of callbacks to the previous games in the series and all that kind of stuff. Hey there, Afro. Welcome. Stan, you think Ashraf Ismail said that they pitched it after they were done with Origins during the development of Odyssey? Yeah, so that's the thing too. Like, putting symbolism in is great and all. I mean, there's, Egyptian symbolism in the glyphs as well. Even in Brotherhood, in the Da Vinci Disappearance, there's some things that gets put in Unity, like with the Enigma symbols and stuff like that. So they definitely have put symbols in the earlier games that then get used in the later games, because the later games are actually set or focus on the culture that was referenced by those, things earlier on as well. I mean, even in Black Flag here in the present day story, you can see a document that they had thought about what kinds of things to actually do as like a meta reference to the fact that obviously Ubisoft would do a similar thing where they're like, okay, here's a list of locations that we could potentially focus on in the future. Hey Phantom, it's easy to assume that there would be a game set in Vikings period at some point, same with Japan. That's true, Phantom. Yeah, yeah, it's one of those things where the actual stories of games like Valhalla weren't conceived of back in, the early days of the series. It's just that having things that are of, Vikings and all that kind of stuff, because you're dealing with a series that covers a lot of history as well. And the very concept of having something that lets you experience memories of someone centuries ago implies, in general terms, that the series could potentially go anywhere to any time period. And so putting references to different time periods and different places in the world so early in the series is definitely understandable, but isn't indicative of any kind of concrete, we already had the story for this game 10 years from now in mind. It's just that they eventually got around to doing a game in that time period. So when you play that new game in that time period, and then you replay the older games, then you're like, oh, cool, here's a symbol that is Norse, or here's a symbol that's Greek. And they eventually did a game set in Greece, But yeah, it's like they didn't intend back then to have a game in 2020 called Valhalla. It wasn't like planned out like that. But they probably would have just put a lot of stuff in there. Like they've got Napoleon mentioned in Assassin's Creed 2. They got Hitler and Stalin mentioned in Brotherhood, and all these other figures from history in different parts of the world. And they have, of course, ended up in a future AC game. But what that game was and the story for it wasn't already thought of back then. You know what I mean? Like the story of Unity that has Napoleon in it wasn't conceived back in 2009 or anything like that. It's just that they were figures in history that were being referenced in the early AC games that they eventually finally put into the series and did stories about them. Godfather, Game Trivia Master Rodo. Welcome in, Godfather. I hope it's going well. Babini, actually, every single AC game we've seen in the RPG era had symbols in AC1. We see the pyramids, we see inseparable circles, and even as a mega symbol. Not to mention we see Chinese and Japanese symbols, which now are coming out as Project Red and Jade. Exactly, Babini, yeah. But those games that you mentioned that are coming out, they weren't written of and conceived back in the early days. It's just that there's elements that are related to those time periods that they are now getting to and showcasing and all that kind of stuff as well. And I mean, you've got Assassin's Creed Chronicles. They're also games I've played. I forgot to mention those earlier, but Assassin's Creed Chronicles China, came out in, what was it? I think it was 20... I always think it came out... I always get confused because I always think it came out earlier than it did. And then when I say when it came out, I'm surprised to check and see that it was actually later than that. Okay, so it came out, let's see. Google. 2016. For some reason, I think it came out in 2014. But yeah, 2016 was when the Chronicles games came out as well. Stan, good thing about having so many games, story points, and assets is that they have so many stuff to work with to knit the story of the next game. Oh, yes, Stan, exactly. Any time periods that they eventually put as the focus for a game, no doubt there had already been a reference to that time period in the earlier games. It's just that the story and everything for those later games wasn't already written and thought out before that point.
He said it marked the location of assassin encampments.
You think maybe you owe them a bit of warning, then? If you have any kind of heart beating in that chest.
Suppose I could, if it leads me to the 4 other keys.
Bad excuse is better than none at all.
That's always a line that sticks with me. A bad excuse is better than none at all. Babini, you're not saying they were written in full. You mean even Star Wars was written a single episode at a time. Are you just saying they are following a roadmap of locations and time periods? Yeah. And the thing is, too, it was inevitable that they would eventually get to these time periods because of how long the series has gone on for. And Mary, of course, says to Edward, basically, if you had any heart beating in your chest, might you not give them some warning? And Edward's like, maybe, if they lead me to the 4 other keys. Aphro, they are not. Yeah, I mean, it's not as exacting as some people might think it is, as to what order they've done things in. Phantom, there's also a change in what they do with the story in the lore since Odyssey that couldn't have been designed by the writers in AC1. Exactly, Phantom. Yeah. Things that they decide to do when they get to that point in time where they're like, okay, how about we do a game that is set in this country during this time period, and what things do we want to actually do? We might have referenced it earlier, but we're now going to make it the basis of what's actually going to happen. Babini, may I ask what has changed in the lore and story? So Odyssey tried to change it that the pieces of Eden were actually things that could physically change people into monsters. Mainly in the DLC, though, Fate of Atlantis, more so than the main game, but this idea that the pieces of Eden somehow transform and experiment, transform people into things, when all it's ever been is creating illusions to people. So, for example, in Odyssey, when you kill one of the, you kill a Cyclops or you kill the Minotaur, if you notice, every time you kill them, a human body is left behind, and Cassandra or Alexis, whoever you're playing as, picks up the piece of Eden. And the only reason they looked like a Minotaur to everyone was because they had the piece of Eden in their possession, and that's the illusion that was created, But the Fate of Atlantis DLC comes in and says, oh no, the Isu were experimenting on humans and turning them into monsters and, all that kind of stuff as well.
Leaving already?
I think this cove suits you best, Edward. Better than that costume does.
Oh, come on now. We're pirates, kid. We take as we please and become who we like. Self-made men.
But that look ain't you. It's not who you are.
I love this exchange between Mary and Edward here. Now, Mary obviously needs to go back to the assassins and report on what she's learned about what has happened. So that's one reason why she's leaving already. She is also trying to, well, not really trying to do this. Scratch that. Her saying that that costume doesn't suit you, it's not who you are. And obviously, Edward doesn't know yet that Mary's actually an assassin. So when she's saying that to Edward, he's completely oblivious to what she's actually implying by what she's saying. But yeah, she knows obviously that he took that outfit by now, because earlier there's a scene where she's like, what, did you steal that outfit off a dandy in Havana? So she has already noticed that obviously Edward is wearing an assassin's outfit. But yeah, I love the dialogue here, how Mary's saying this. And the other thing is too, and Schiller pointed this out, that right from the get-go, we can see that Mary has her hidden blade on her. There's certain points where you see it. So they were giving hints to keen-eyed players who might not have actually played the games before that, maybe she's actually an assassin as well by that. But yeah, I love the dialogue where she's like, that outfit isn't you, is not who you are. Babini, we've actually heard of that. Juno and her lover. We hear from herself that they use pieces of Eden to experiment and create monstrosities. Well, I might be misremembering the monstrosities part, because that to me implies that they've been making creatures and monsters and stuff like that. But they were certainly experimenting, finding different ways to extend their life beyond the catastrophe. thinking of ways to, stop the catastrophe as well, and all that kind of stuff. And there's an opening for the Isu to have experimented on humans because they created us after all. And if creating something doesn't involve trial and error, then, I imagine creating humans for the Isu would have been trial and error, figuring out how to do things and, putting the receptor in the human brain to be more controllable. And when they use the piece of Eden, it basically connects to the part of their brain that's been wired to respond to the piece of Eden and all that kind of stuff. So I can understand where they're coming from with the idea of having the Isu actually experiment on humans. But I think when Odyssey says that they were literally turning people into minotaurs and turning them into cyclopses, it's too much, and it goes against the idea of the pieces of Eden being used as tools of manipulation and control and creating illusions, not tools of turning people into things that they're not. But yeah, as I said, that's more something that the Fate of Atlantis does, because the writers on Fate of Atlantis were different to the writers of the main story, so they obviously didn't research each other's work or communicate very well to understand that. But yeah, Godfather, according to the game, it's Minotaur. That's right. Afro, the RPG games have done nothing but damage the established lore, at least for you. Yeah, they've definitely muddied things. They've created contradictions that shouldn't have been made. And they've just, like I was saying before, in Star Wars terms, the Force may be something that is supernatural in a way, but it's not something that writers should just use as an excuse to come up with anything and just say, hey, the Force did it. So you're telling me that you can have a Jedi utter the word hello and it makes someone turn into a flower? Yeah, of course. Why? Well, they used the Force to do it. Yeah, but the Force can't do that. Why can't it? The Force is magic. It should be able to do anything. And with the pieces of Eden and all that kind of stuff, I feel like they've got to that point, starting with Odyssey, where they're like, we can make up anything and just say, well, it's the piece of Eden that does it. This person can fly. Oh yeah, that's because they got a piece of Eden that makes them fly, and all that kind of stuff. I haven't, Afro, no. No, I haven't seen Lawrence of Arabia yet. Godfather, Minotaur. Minotaur instead of Minotaur. Yeah, Minotaur. Yeah, how they pronounce it. Babini Juno's reference to experiments is at the point where she's pointing to what they were doing to humans themselves. Minerva is more or less our main source of preventing apocalypse. Also, in the case of the usage that Pieces of Eden had, we only saw humans use them. It's not so out of sight and mind that maybe the Isu were more capable in PoE usage. Yeah, I don't know about that, to be honest, because even though we don't see many Isu using the Pieces of Eden, the Pieces of Eden themselves and their capabilities can't be used to their fullest by humans. If you have a really strong concentration of Isu DNA in you, you are more likely able to ignore what the piece of Eden is trying to make you do and actually not do it, whereas those who don't are very easily manipulated. But the Isu don't have any sort of element of what the humans have in their brain, which the pieces of Eden communicate to. So Isu using the apples to control other Isu, we haven't seen that happen. I don't know if that would even be possible for them to do that to another Isu. Maybe it is. But yeah, I don't know. It's a bit tricky sometimes too, because you've got so many games in the series and so much information, and it's very easy to forget things or not recognize things and stuff like that.
Who am I then?
Hard to tell some days. All I know is you like dangerous prizes.
Like the observatory. I think you know more about that than you let on in NASA.
You noticed that, did you? Meet me at 20 degrees, 3 minutes latitude, just off the coast of Yucatan. I'll have something to show you there in a few weeks' time.
This Old Cove. Completed. Okay, just to recap what happened in Sequence 3. Last sequence recap. Sequence 3, The Republic of Pirates, in which Edward Kenway, newly named captain aboard his newly christened Jackdaw, set sail for Nassau, Pirate Republic, whereupon he reunited with old friends Ed Thatch, Benjamin Hornigold, and James Kidd, and there, under the tutelage of his betters, learned the proper methods of captaining, seafaring, and pirating, and did ultimately cross paths with the Templar Julian Ducasse, whom he killed out of caution, wishing not to raise the Templars' attentions against him, as he continued his own private search for the mysterious observatory and the only man who knew its location, the Sage. Sequence 4, Memory 1, This Old Cove. Edward explores his new Great Inagua hideout and discovers more than a few strange secrets there. So that's the one that we just did. Babini, yeah, sure, but no matter how concentrated the Isu DNA is within your genetic coding, you're not 100% Isu. The entirety of our PoE knowledge comes from Templar databases primarily, which is questionable at best, not to mention in the hidden video message in the Chronicle series way before the RPG series, we see that the Templars are already experimenting with PoE transformation deeper capabilities. Not to mention, ever since AC1, we know that there are near hundreds of PoE. That's true, and the whole Isu DNA thing, not every single person would have 100% of that in their body and all that kind of stuff as well. And the Templars, obviously, you know, they want to have certain information known to only the important people, and other people aren't privy to that kind of stuff as well. But yeah, no doubt they've been testing and experimenting with Piece of Eden transformation and all that kind of stuff. They've been doing that, and there's probably some things that they gleaned from it as well. And yeah, there's definitely lots of pieces of Eden in the world that were either lost or they're still there, but they just haven't been discovered again, and they've been covered up under stuff and things like that. We also learned that each of them has different capabilities. While an apple of Eden can create illusions, while some other apples were used as maps or other things. Yeah, but it's not until Odyssey that they explicitly say that the pieces of Eden can actually turn you into a monster if it wants to, which is something that I think is ridiculous, to be honest. They can create other technology, like the Shroud of Eden isn't designed to control a human's mind or anything like that. So they have created objects that serve a different purpose and stuff like that. And they could make a piece of Eden that is programmed to show maps and things. But it's kind of getting a bit out of hand if it's like, oh yeah, they can also turn people into monsters as well, which I just feel is a bit ridiculous. It gets to a point where no matter how fantastical something is, it gets to a point where you still need to have boundaries on what those fantasy things can do. In the same way that a mobile phone can't juggle something, literally, not everything in a fantastical franchise or a sci-fi franchise needs to be capable of literally anything, simply because it's something that might not exist in real life.
Captain, do you have a moment?
Captain, you have a moment. Nope, don't have any moments. It's time to do more story.
Good afternoon, Edward. Captain's at the helm. Ahoy, Captain. We found a trove of nautical maps and ledgers and the like, scattered about the village. You'll find them sorted in the captain's quarters of the Jackdaw. Quality stuff.
Nautical maps and ledgers. Might come in useful if we decide to build up a fleet of our own.
Exactly my thinking, Captain. Have a look for yourself and tell me what you think.
But Beanie, when it comes to writing, we have two sorts of magic: soft magic, Harry Potter, Assassin's Creed and so on; hard magic, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. A Force user in canon Star Wars cannot use the Force to transform something, but a wizard in Harry Potter might know a spell that can end all times for all we know. Not to mention a phone can't juggle. Yes, but if we give said phone a magnetic device that can manipulate other objects, it can in the future. That's true. Yeah. I guess more my point was, no matter how fantastical your story is, you still need to have limitations to what magical things can actually do. Because otherwise, it creates too many variables where people can start to be very lazy and come up with ridiculous ideas that can simply just be waved away and said, well, it's because it's magic, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, like there's definitely rules that get established in franchises as to what things can do what and what extent and all that kind of stuff. I just feel that you need to be careful when coming up with a new story to make sure that whatever you're adding is actually following some sort of logic. Otherwise, it becomes a free-for-all where anyone can come up with anything and then not have to worry about it being challenged because they can just say, well, it's magic as well. Like, it might seem limiting to have that point of view on storytelling, but you still need to have some kind of, like, limitations on what something can do. Otherwise, there's no reason to have the story happen. Because if there's something that can just make something magically be resolved, then why even bother having the characters worry about it when they can just click their fingers and make it disappear? Okay, so I'll send all these on missions. There we go. Access fleet. We can actually change outfits at this point. I'll see if there's any outfits I want to change into. Or that I want to get. I'll get that sorted later. Babini, we forget that the Isu were around for thousands and thousands of years. It might be very well the case that they learn more. For example, in 1,000,000 years, someone can find a Nokia phone and think that's as far as we went, but they will think, they had buttons and so on. But historians can find a Samsung S22 and suddenly be shocked because it contradicts all they had learned of phones up to that point. Also, you always thought the Apples were more capable, because if a thing needs enough power to create the Tunguska disaster if destroyed, you don't think it has just one function, aka controlling minds and whatnot. You guess apples being used to create actual monstrosities didn't surprise you, because you always thought that the Templars and Assassins had not discovered its true capabilities. Yeah, because the Isu lived centuries and centuries ago, and they were a highly advanced race. If we only found technology of theirs that covered 1,000 years of their existence, but not the other thousands that followed, we might just assume that that's as far as their technology went. And that later on, if we found technology that was even newer than that from their perspective, then we'd be like, okay, so we thought they only went as far as this, but they actually went as far as that, and that kind of thing. So I understand that, and I don't think that's something that's a bad thing in stories and stuff like that. I guess the thing is, the actual Apples of Eden had always been shown to be something that creates illusions and also can control other humans to do things that, they don't want to do. But we've seen a lot of other objects that weren't the apples that have different functions, like the Shroud of Eden wasn't created to actually control people's minds, but it was created to heal wounds instantly when they happened, for example. And by extension, there were weapons that they would have created as well, or that they could have created, that don't control people's minds. Like the Sword of Eden in Unity doesn't control someone's mind. It's just a weapon that can produce a source of energy that can be shot at someone, like it's a laser beam or something, and that kind of stuff. But my main issue with Odyssey was that if they wanted to have something that the Isu created which could change people into monsters, then they should have come up with something different other than just saying it's a piece of Eden, an apple, that does it. Because up until that point, the apples were mainly shown to be devices to create illusions and control humans. It wasn't shown to be something capable of creating a new life or mutating an existing being into something different. And so I feel that if they wanted to go that route, they should have come up with a different kind of object. Say they could have come up with a device that was actually injected, like nanotechnology or something, that's injected into the person and it changes their DNA and changes them into a monster, instead of simply tying that attribute and that power to Apples of Eden and all that kind of stuff. And I guess too, the problem is there isn't like a code sheet we can look at and go, okay, so this is Piece of Eden Apple version 1. This is how much it could do. But then they came out with Apple version 2, and that could do more. Then they came out with Apple, version 3, and so on and so forth. Like with our technology, we can tell that when something goes from being one thing to the next, that there's an evolution, that what came before isn't capable of what the new thing is. But we don't exactly have like an in-depth code sheet that we can look at for the series and have everything listed in the order in which the Isu created them, and any new things that they might have added and all that kind of stuff. So there's nothing that we can concretely use as a guide. So they could very well have come up with apples that could make you turn invisible, and apples that could make you fly, and apples that could make buildings disappear, and apples that could change you into a different person. But making the apples be something that just any ability can be applied to can lead to lazy creativity, where people are simply coming up with something and saying, oh, we've got this magical apple thing, we can just make it that apple does this, because we want to justify what we want to actually come up with, and all that kind of stuff. And I guess too, with the piece of Eden being experimented on by Tesla, and how the assassins wanted him to destroy it, because it's a piece of technology, whatever materials were used to create it were such that, depending on what was used against it, it could be destroyed. And so having like a big explosion happen is probably something that is, equivalent to something that's explodable, having certain elements added to it which make it blow up. Whereas if it was just left alone, it wouldn't have blown up, kind of thing as well. But yeah, I think ultimately it comes down to whether or not someone is okay with the pieces of Eden being given the attribute later on of, oh yeah, there was some that could turn you into a Cyclops. I guess it comes down to whether people or not think that's okay or not. And I'm in the camp that is like, that's getting a bit too ridiculous. If you want to make something in the series do something like that, make it a different type of technology that the Isu made. Don't just tie it to an apple. Because yeah, the majority of the apples that we've seen in the series have been used for illusions and manipulation, not for recreation or creating new things that weren't there before that can now exist, or mutating people into other stuff.
Where's that bloody boy with the oakum?
Do it right!
Before we do the next mission, now that we can actually go back somewhere, let's just actually go to the merchant. Oh yeah, there won't be one there in Nassau. Oh, that's right, I forgot. For some reason, in this view mode, it doesn't show you merchants. It only shows you the ship merchants. You got to actually fast travel to somewhere that has those shops, and then they'll appear on the sea, like this map thing here. Bavini, wasn't an Apple of Eden utilised on that ship that had travelled in time back in EC2 or Brotherhood Glyphs? Yeah, in Assassin's Creed 1, when you finally get access to the conference room, there's a laptop that talks about the different pieces of Eden and all that kind of stuff. And they do mention the Philadelphia experiment and how there was like some form of time travel done and stuff. But I can't remember the details of that though, specifically and exactly, as to whether or not they were assigned to a piece of Eden or if it was just something else as well. But it could have very well just created the illusion that it travelled in time, and doesn't necessarily mean that it literally made it travel in time. Hey Star, I hope things are going well. Welcome on in. I think this is the outfit I want to have Edward wearing for the rest of this stream, because it's essentially his default outfit in terms of like the design work, but it's a different colouring. Star, besides it being 3 a.m, it's good. Oh really? 3 a.m. your time? So still very, very early then, in that case. It's definitely understandable. Very Star, yeah. Well, I'm glad that it's still going good, even if it's being only 3 a.m. Oh, is it Babini? It's 12 p.m. for you. It's 8 p.m. here at the moment.
Captain has the helm. It's our course today, Captain. It's a fine day for any kind of mischief.
What's your feeling?
I'll make no secret of wanting to see the British brought to heel. If we can take their gold and put it to use ourselves, I'll be a happy man.
Spoken like a true Welshman, Ade.
And what's your aim?
Master Kidd hinted at a prize he was eager to show me down in Tulum. Quite some distance, mind, on the Yucatan Peninsula.
You trust him to play it fair?
I can't be sure. But he has a way of picking away at my conscience that gives me pause. I should go see him soon.
So long as we take some prizes along the way, I'm sure the crew will understand. I'll set a course for Tulum.
Set a course for Tulum. It's so funny. Sometimes in these playthroughs, the timing of when I'm going to end a stream coincides with that dialogue, which means if I'm going to be doing any offline grinding, at that point, it means that every time I load up the game and fast travel to open sea, that dialogue plays over and over and over again. And if I'm still streaming and I want to do other stuff on stream, but not the story, that also makes that dialogue continually just repeat over and over again. Yeah, Stan is like, it's a fine day for any kind of mischief times 10. Exactly. But the timing of things for this playthrough is such that I'm still going to be streaming
We cannot be caught in that monster.
from this point of the story.
Douse all but mains! Loose all and trim sharp to the wind!
Who stops you?
Unfurl mains, let's move!
Move, damn you! Steady, steady!
Reef in all tops! Give me some speed!
Sorry, Edward, but we don't have ludicrous speed. It's a fine day for any kind of mischief. Spoken like a true Welshman, Addy. Haha, and what's your aim?
There's our prey! They're on the bowline to hell!
I love that quote. They're on a bowline to hell. I don't know how the timing of this playthrough is going to turn out, but if I sense that it's going to take longer than the time that's left before the year ends, I'm going to add more stream days for this playthrough. Just have to play it by ear. Because if I stick to strictly just doing streams of this every weekend, after today is done, then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, well, about 5, 6 days that I could do in December towards this playthrough. I mean, it's a fine day for fishing, ain't it? Yeah, you got storms and everything. Nothing is true. I love the title of this mission. Memory 2, Nothing is True. Finding himself in a village crawling with men and women who would not appreciate his presence, Edward sneaks through an assassin village to locate Master James Kidd.
Ba'ash kubeti gleti wai sokano tustal ambi. Keshma uyuheleti.
Babini, you wonder, what do you think of Assassin's Creed, Assassins changing religion? Because in AC Revelations, in Desmond's Memories of the Farm, we hear church bells and azan, which are Christian and Muslim symbols, while later on we see that assassins are atheists. I don't really know. I mean, I guess it goes back to what the assassins are actually standing for. And if you think about the freedoms that people have, one of the freedoms, of course, is freedom of religion, as in you're free to choose what religion you believe in. And there was a time where the Templars wanted Christianity to be the only religion that people followed. But then even the Templars got to a point where they necessarily weren't believing in that, and there were some that obviously were worshipping the Isu and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't really know. I don't know if the assassins as a whole have chosen which religion is the one that they follow, and that's the only one that they follow. I don't know if there's been some official decision that's been made, because I would have thought that the assassins would have wanted to fight for the freedom of anyone to believe in whichever religion they wanted to.
Untulak tutuus, kubukintik unok, untol winig sug, ukonigel mashake, bukahu masuptal, yangwaltiletie. So Edward, even though the game is going to treat it as a desync if you get detected, the assassins actually know that Edward's here. They're not stupid. They know that he's actually here in the story, because they're mentioning him, and the assassins before were like, he's been summoned here though he does not know it, kinds of stuff. What is he doing here and all this kind of thing. But the assassins in this story, I would definitely dare say, have been instructed not to kill Edward, at least not yet. But Edward's very lucky. Godfather, assassins don't stand. They are always crouched in stealth, even when they're asleep. Hey there, Tech. Welcome on in. I hope it's going well. Technically, their motto is, nothing is true, everything is permitted. Yeah, I mean, obviously there are truths to things, but the assassins aren't necessarily saying that there's only one truth and one truth only. It's more like, if someone tells you that they have $1 billion, it might be the truth, but still have the doubt that they're actually not telling the truth, unless they are able to show that they actually are a millionaire. You know what I mean? Like, if someone said to you, I have a time-traveling refrigerator, it might be true, but you have to assume that it's not true until you get proof otherwise that it is true. So the nothing is true part of the assassin's maxim is not a literal thing. It's more of a be open to the fact that nothing you are told is true, that it could turn out to be false, that even things that are strongly true at the outset might not actually be true when you look at it, and that kind of stuff. And everything is permitted is not to say that everything is allowed, therefore doing things that others would consider to be terrible doesn't matter because everything's permitted anyway. Like, to take that literally would be like if an assassin murdered an innocent person and then the law was like, you killed an innocent person, we need to arrest you for that. If the assassin was like, well, my maxim is everything is permitted, the law's not going to go, oh, okay then. There's still going to be repercussions for doing that, So everything is permitted is to say that while things can be done, it doesn't make you free from repercussions of doing those things. So it needs a bit of wisdom to go towards that as well. And the interesting thing about this game and Edward's life as a pirate is he is basically living literally the everything is permitted aspect. And so when he hears that that is part of the assassin's motto, he likes the sound of it because it falls in line with what he does anyway, which is doing as he pleases, you know. And Mary's like, you parrot the words, but you don't understand them. Which is a great line too, because it shows that there's more to being an assassin and there's more to the maxim than simply knowing it and repeating it because you've learnt it. You know, you also have to live it as well. And that's something that Edward is thinking that going around doing as he please is living it, but that's without the actual understanding of what the words really mean. Godfather, that's their religion. Everything is permitted. Yeah. Stan, you think religion and the Brotherhood coexist? I think so too. Yeah, I definitely feel that as well. Because otherwise the assassins would be against other people, like would be against people following other religions then. Like if they themselves believed that there was only one religion that was true, then that would mean that they would have to fight against those who believed otherwise, simply for believing otherwise, which is not what the assassins are to do, you know. And it's like assassins, right? Like the boundaries of your ethnicity, the boundaries of your upbringing, the boundaries of your language, the boundaries of your religion, the boundaries of so many other things are not restricted anymore as an assassin, in the sense that when you become an assassin, it doesn't mean you're not allowed to talk to your family anymore because they're not assassins. You know, things like that as well. Phantom Assassins don't define themselves by religion, unlike Templars. Yeah, I mean, the Templars did change. Like, in King Alfred's time period, the Order of the Ancients was heavily praising the Isu, the ones who came before. And King Alfred saw that as a slight against God, because he believed that there was only one God, and that was the Christian God. And so the seeds are sown for what will eventually become the Templar Order, because King Alfred wants to change things up and create something new, guided by the belief in there being one God, you know. And so the Templars, for a time, were of that belief, but then some Templars went back to the ways of the Order of the Ancients in worshipping the Isu, and then you get the other faction called the Instruments of the First Will, who are neither assassin nor Templar, or if they are, they believe not in a higher power, but they believe in the ones who came before and worship them as well. So there's a lot of differences and changes that happen and all that kind of stuff. Babini, in their association, they literally say, where other men blindly follow the truth, remember, nothing is true. Where other men are limited by morality or law, remember, everything is permitted. Exactly. Where other men blindly follow the truth, people just following the truth because it was told to them by someone, and if that person's in a position of authority, they will automatically believe that what they're being told is true. But nothing is true means that you should not simply believe that which you're told to be true is actually true. You need to have the open mind that they might be wrong, or that you might be wrong, and that there's something that you don't know yet which could contradict that, you know, and all that kind of stuff. And where other men are limited by morality or law, remember, everything is permitted. Because the assassins believe that everything is permitted, even though they say where other men are limited by morality or law, the contradiction which Altair points out in the Codex pages that he writes, is that if they're saying that other people who are limited by morality or law is something that the assassins don't have to worry about, then it means that an assassin can break the law without repercussion. But the contradiction is that that's not the case. That's not true. You know, if an assassin breaks the law's not going to go, oh, you're an assassin, you're above the law then. Never mind, go about your business. You know what I mean? But the thing about life in general anyway, which is part of what the Creed recognizes, is that there are contradictions. Because when we look at things, not everything is in perfect alignment. You know what I mean? Like, someone who doesn't like music might like music that is of a certain genre, so if they're a fan of a certain genre of music but not a fan of music in general, that's a bit of a contradiction. But sometimes there's music that, yeah, you know, you might hate music in general, but maybe there's a song that you hear and you go, yeah, this music's all right. You're being contradictory, of course, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. You know what I mean? So contradictions and two sides to different things and all that kind of stuff are things that, you know, the assassins sort of like deal with the nothing is true and everything is permitted kind of thing. And, you know, the very fact that they kill goes against the idea of, you know, like they're trained to kill, yet not everyone needs to be killed as well. Like if someone steals something, the assassins aren't like, oh, well, you stole that, we have to kill you now. They're going to be like, okay, you stole something, and that's a bad thing that you did. We're not going to kill you for it, but the repercussion of this is you're going to be arrested and you're going to be put away. You know, that's the consequence of the action that happens. So while the assassins are trained to kill, they're not trained to just kill people for no reason. And when there is a reason, it can't just be any reason, you know. If you're going around killing innocent people, if you shoot 20 people who did nothing wrong, the assassins are going to be like, well, you deserve to be killed. Not, oh, you know, it's okay. Everything's permitted after all, so it's okay that you shot those innocent people. You're not going to have to worry about any repercussions. It's like, no. Of course there's going to be repercussions for it. Lablinsky, thank you so very much for the raid. I hope things have been going good. Hope you had a good stream. Nice, you're playing some Need for Speed. Heat. Excellent. I haven't really played many of those games, but I've seen some of them. I don't know if I've seen Heat being played before. How was the game? Welcome on in, Raiders. Take your understanding of the assassin's ideal of religion is it's up to the individual assassin, whereas the Templars is more homogeneous. Bayek believed in Egyptian, Radunga Hedon believed in his spirits, whereas Haytham believed only in the Father of Understanding. Yeah, and Bayek is very much someone who respects the gods and goddesses. And Connor, you know, once he once he sees the vision of Juno, his only way to compute what he's actually witnessed, the only way that he can actually kind of like accept it in his mind is by putting it through the lens of, oh, it's a spirit. He doesn't have the information at that time to know, oh, this is a message that has been, delivered to me by someone who existed before I was even born and before humanity, and they're using technology, He's just like, oh yeah, the spirits. And Achilles obviously knows that they're not spirits and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, perspective is definitely a big thing in the series as well. Stan, you can't recall religion being talked about in AC games as part of the story, but you're not 100% sure. Until Valhalla, that is. Dirty thief, I'll have your hand for that. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you look at real history, the actual assassin group that existed in real life, they would not have been people who believed in or who followed Christianity. So if the assassins in the Assassin's Creed series were to be true to the actual assassin group that existed, then they would be devoted to one religion, and they wouldn't be allowed to be, members wouldn't be allowed to be devoted to another religion because they would be seen as heretics and stuff. So the way that they changed the assassins to be in the Assassin's Creed series is definitely different to how the real assassin group was in real history. But yeah, in the actual Assassin's Creed games, you would assume by Assassin's Creed 1 that the assassins would only be promoting one religion and not allowing others to believe in another religion and be part of the assassins. Like, obviously the Crusader army is, representing Christianity. But as we know, the Templars and the assassins in the AC series can be any number of, followers of something. Like, you can be a Muslim and be an assassin. You can be a Christian and be an assassin. You can be a peace activist and be a assassin. You can be a war supporter and still be a Templar. You can be against war and still be a Templar. Because being a Templar and being an assassin and what you have to follow is very different to other things as well. There's a quote in Liberation where one of the targets says that the Templars will keep the colony French. And Aveline is like, no, the Templars will keep the colony Templars. And then you have Manuel Palaiologos in Revelations, who is saying Byzantine, Ottoman, Byzantine, these are just trappings, or something on that effect, So, on the surface at least, Templars would like the world to think that there's all these divisions that exist, but really, all Templars of any sort of background are considered to be part of the one Templar family as well. And it's similar for the assassins also. That's okay, Star. Absolutely no worries at all. And Lublinski, no worries at all for the lurk. Thank you both for leaving the lurk. Thanks again for the raid, Lublinski. The game is okay, it's fun, but you don't think it's really that good. Oh, that's definitely fair enough. I've never played them myself, so but sort of like racing games like that. And I know there's more to it than just racing around a track and then move on to the next thing, but that's a series that hasn't really won me over as one that I would want to get into, at least not yet anyway. Babini, thank you for redeeming the old man impression. I'll definitely do that in a moment. Tech, you'd add that the assassins act similar to the Jedi in Star Wars, like Ezio understanding to a point of those who came before, but locked away all that information for him to die with. The assassins adapt with humanity's advancement. The Templars try to force and direct it. That's true. Yeah, the Templars are definitely trying to exert control over how people operate, what they think, what they do, what they say, what they believe, what they eat, what they drink, what jobs they have. If a Templar doesn't want someone to have a certain position in a job, they'll damn make sure that that never happens and put in place someone who they want to be. You know what I mean? Stan, have a nice breakfast. Tech, by modern standards, the assassins are terrorists and the Templars are cultists and supremacists. Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing too, as well. Like, there's definitely acts that the assassins do which could be considered terrorist acts as well. The destruction of certain property in and of itself could actually be considered a terrorist act, especially if a government building is, targeted and stuff. So there is definitely some tricky sort of like lines that they have to sort of balance on when dealing with the assassins and the Templar conflict.
Hello, it's the old man here. I saw that someone redeemed for me to speak, so Rod just said I need to say some words. And, I don't really know what to say, but I think maybe I might do the letters of the alphabet. Okay, so, A, B, D, G, P, Z. So that's the alphabet. I'm missing some letters. Okay. So we have A, B, C, E, G, A. Hang on. That can't be right. Well, the short version of the alphabet is A to Z. There we go. That'll do it. So now you know your alphabet. What else can I talk about? Well, let's talk about what it means to be an ice cream. Sometimes when you're an ice cream, you can be delicious and you can be solid, but sometimes things happen and you can melt and you can become liquid and soft, and then you can disappear entirely and things like that. And speaking of ice cream, I could really do with some ice cream. And, what's this? It's a TV. TV. That's part of the alphabet, too. I forgot to say that. So, T and V is also part of the alphabet, and, to be or not to be, that is the answer. No, that's the question. That's right, that's the question, not the answer. Yeah, so that's it. That's my grandpa TED Talk today. Thanks everyone for listening, and I need to go and get some sleep.
No worries. You go get some sleep. Get some rest. Thanks for redeeming that impression. Stan, what's your favorite letter, Grandpa? I think it starts with S for sleep. Take only threshold to be labelled terrorism is if it's politically motivated. Considering the frequent involvement of world leaders and political figures make it automatic terrorism. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if we look at the assassins and what they do, if there was a Templar-owned business and the assassins knew that only Templars were actually inside the building at the time and they blew it up to kill the Templars could then spin that off as being innocent people were killed in that bomb blast, which wouldn't look good for the assassins because they would be looked at as being, terrorists in that respect. Whereas in actuality, they were killing Templars that were in the building, and there were no innocents in there. Because the Templars are able to do what they want and make it look like things that the assassins did which were good things, but actually make the public think it was a bad thing. Which is why it's weird in Syndicate how Evie doesn't realize that maybe the assassins, maybe the Templars, are the reason why shit's going wrong with the Bank of England, and that Jacob killing Twopenny, who was a Templar, was a good thing, and the decision to close the bank wasn't Jacob's, it was Abeline's, and so Jacob shouldn't be blamed for what the Templars did afterwards, but he still gets blamed for that anyway. It's like, as an assassin, you should know that the Templars have money, power, and influence, and they can make anything seem to the public like one thing when it was actually something else. But yeah, that's a whole other topic, because that's a big flaw in that game's writing with that character.
Jesus, kid. You led me into a mess. Is it these monks guarding the treasure you promised me?
I told you I had a secret to share, but I didn't say it'd be easy. Now let's get this door open and I'll show you what's inside.
Let's see what is said when we don't do it straight away.
Onto something. I can feel it.
Captain Kenway? What is the assassin, Duncan Walpole?
Dead and buried. After he tried to kill me.
We are not sorry to see him gone, but it was you who carried out his final betrayal. Why?
Okay, just want to pause it there before Edward responds. Okay, so Artabai wants to know what happened to the assassin Duncan Walpole. The thing about that is whether he knew, no, he does know. Yeah, because you carried out his final betrayal. Okay, so Artabai knew that Duncan was betraying the assassins and joining the Templars. And so he's wondering why Edward continued with Duncan's mission as well. So yeah, Artabai asks him what happened with the assassin, and in finding out that the assassin was killed and he was defecting to the Templars, Artabai, knowing that, is still asking Edward some more information about it to figure it out. And we have Mary there, of course, who's in the middle of the two, which is interesting because one of the reasons why Edward is still alive is because Mary managed to talk Artabai out of just having Edward killed as well and all that kind of stuff. And she's soon going to mention about the fact that Edward has the sense, which is, the eagle vision, eagle sense as well. So she's kind of like acting as a mediator between Edward and Artabai here. And Edward is damn lucky that they just kill him. I mean, they had plenty of opportunity up until this point to actually kill him. So he's very lucky that they didn't decide to do that. And Edward here, of course, is going to say something which is going to be very upsetting for Artabai in answering why he carried out the final betrayal that Duncan Walpole was actually doing. And he's going to say, money was my only aim. And then Artabai will be like, should I find comfort in that? You murdered our brothers and sisters in Havana. Something along those lines. So that means that in that mission earlier, where we had to prevent the assassins from killing or capturing the sage or killing Torres, Edward actually did kill assassins. So you in gameplay can just knock the assassins out if you want to, but in canon, Edward actually killed those assassins during that mission. So Artabai is aware of the fact that he's done that, of course. And when Artabai says that you murdered our brothers and sisters in Havana, it means that no matter what you do as the player to prevent Edward from killing any of the assassins, he actually did kill the assassins in that memory as well. Tech. It's easy to assume the assassins are the good guys. However, the truth of it is they're both extremists. Neither is 100% correct morally, politically, or otherwise holistically. Fun fantasy is fun, though. Now you'll digress and you'll drink to that. Cheers. Yeah, that's no worries at all, Tech. Yeah. I mean, that's the other thing, too. There is a level of creating things to be a certain way in the games that would be different as opposed to real life as well. And so the way that things operate in real life take a different kind of, approach in analyzing it than it does in the AC series as well. And there's definitely points where, the assassins themselves don't consider them to be the good guys either, like Sean in Assassin's Creed 2, sort of like, responds to Desmond saying something along the lines of, like, it's so good to be with the good guys now. And Sean's like, hold your horses, in case you don't remember, we kill people, kind of thing. So there's definitely some grey areas in that. And there's also some things that are much easier to put together in a video game than it is to actually, recreate a realistic thing 100% realistically and how it operates and all that kind of stuff.
Money was my only aim.
Should I find comfort in that? You murdered our brothers and sisters in Havana.
He has the sense, Mentor.
James tells me you traded with the Templars there. Did you see the man they called the Sage?
Aye.
Would you recognize his face if you saw it again?
I reckon so.
I must be certain.
All right. So the fact that Edward actually knows what the Sage looks like is another element that comprises many reasons why the assassins don't kill him for what he did. And because he actually knows what the Sage looks like, Artabai is going to allow Edward to still be alive so that he can actually confirm whether or not this statue that we'll eventually see of the Sage corresponds to the person that Edward saw, i.e. Bartholomew Roberts, who he doesn't know the name of him yet, I don't think, but that's irrelevant. The point is, Edward is still allowed to be alive, at the very least at this point, to be able to identify the Sage. And beyond that, he's even luckier that after confirming that it actually is the Sage, that the assassins still let Edward live. But there are, boundaries that they put on Edward as well after that, though.
Not a word. Come on.
There was actually a look there that Edward gave when Artabai mentioned that quote-unquote James had already spoken to them and revealed about what happened with the Templars and that. And it's a look of someone who feels like they've been betrayed in a way, in the sense of Edward thinking that what was being talked about with James was just between them, ended up not being just between them. And that ties into Edward's feeling towards James of feeling like he was led there and misled and deceived and all that kind of stuff as well.
You walked me blind and backwards into this mess, kid. Who the hell was that jester back there?
Atabai, an assassin. And my mentor.
So you're all part of some daffy religion?
We're assassins and we follow a creed, aye. But it does not command us to act or submit. Only to be wise.
Oh, do tell.
So it's going to be a little bit sloppy with when I'm pausing to talk about stuff. But the point of this playthrough is to analyze the story and the characters, but also the dialogue as well. And sometimes it's easier to analyze dialogue and talk about it when the whole conversation that's programmed to happen isn't actually happening at the same time. So I'll just put the screen on that, even though it might have overlapped a bit with Edward's dialogue he's about to say before I paused it. So James is like, we're assassins and we follow a creed, aye. But it doesn't command us to act or submit, but to be wise. And I really like that quote because it's very reminiscent of a quote that Altair has in Assassin's Creed 1. And for the sake of accuracy, I just want to grab that quote. And then get Mary's exact quote there. Okay, so Mary's line was, we're assassins and we follow a creed, aye, but it does not command us to act or submit, only to be wise. In Assassin's Creed 1, when Altair is talking to Al-Mualim, and Al-Mualim asks what is it to transcend, Altair responds with, to recognize nothing is true and everything is permitted, that laws arise not from divinity but reason. But what's more important related to what Mary just said, that I'm comparing to what Altair said, is the part where he says, I understand now that our creed does not command us to be free, it commands us to be wise. Mary says, it does not command us to act or submit, only to be wise. Altair says, I understand now that our creed does not command us to be free, it commands us to be wise. More than just being a really cool sort of like paraphrasing or referencing sort of point to what Altair said in AC1, the other important aspect about it is that Mary being an assassin and following the creed, and the fact that part of that is to know that it's not a commandment to act or submit, but it's a guidance towards being wise as well. And Mary is a very important character in Black Flag. And one of the reasons why she's very important is because she is the assassin that Edward spends the time with the most throughout the story. And as such, she is a major representative of the Assassins and also the Creed as well. And this game often gets dismissed as just a pirate game. That there's nothing about the Assassins or the Creed in it. Therefore, it's not an Assassin's Creed game. And that's something that I very, very strongly disagree about. Because we have characters like Mary, who is an assassin. We do have other assassins as well. There is the Creed. They're actually following the Creed. The Creed gets mentioned. And Mary is a character that is trying to instill in Edward some things that go hand in hand with what the assassins actually believe. Because there's something in Edward that she sees that gives her hope that he has the potential to actually be an assassin as well. And she's one of the only people who believes in him in that way. And so her being a big representative of the Assassins and the Creed to Edward is actually a very strong part of this game's narrative. If this game had no Assassins in it, nothing to do with the Creed, no mentioning of the Creed, then why have Assassins in this game at all? They could have made it a game where there are no Assassins. It's just a story about a guy who's a pirate named Edward going about being a pirate, and there would be no mention of any assassins, there'd be no mention of any Templars, there'd be no mention of any sages, there'd be no mention of the observatory. It would purely and simply be a story about a pirate doing pirate stuff as a pirate, using weapons that aren't the hidden blade but just swords and pistols, not wearing an assassin outfit or anything like that. But it goes beyond just those elements. And I was saying this in another stream, is the assassins in the Assassin's Creed series, they are more than just the outfit that they wear. That's not the most important aspect of being an assassin. If you look at what Mary wears, she doesn't wear an assassin's traditional outfit, yet she's still an assassin. It doesn't mean that to be an assassin you have to wear the outfit 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Otherwise, you're not an assassin. The hidden blade, while it is a signature weapon of the assassins, if an assassin doesn't have a hidden blade, that doesn't mean that they're no longer an assassin. To have a hidden blade does not mean that that's one of the defining things that if you don't have it at all, you're not an assassin at all. You can still be an assassin without a hidden blade. Something might have happened to the hidden blade. It might have been damaged and you haven't had time to repair it, or you haven't had a replacement, you know. So the assassin putting that, like Ezio, he takes his hidden blade off. When he takes his hidden blade off his wrist, does that mean he's not an assassin anymore? Of course not. He's still an assassin. So being an assassin is more than just the outfit. It's more than just the hidden blade. There's actually a philosophy behind being an assassin. There's actually a thought process, and there's also meaning and symbolism and all these things in being an assassin. And what's more important than the outfit and the hidden blade is actually the tenets of the Creed. They're more important than the outfit. They're more important than the hidden blade. And so Mary, even though she doesn't wear a traditional assassin outfit, her presence in this story, and the fact that there is assassins in the game, and the fact that Edward is wearing an outfit, and the fact that he's got a hidden blade, if you stripped away the fact that Edward doesn't have a hidden blade and doesn't have an outfit, I would still say that this isn't purely just a pirate game. Because to be a purely pirate game, you would have no assassins in it at all, no Templars in it at all, no mention of them, no magical pieces of Eden, no observatory device, no mention of that, no present day sequences at all, nothing at all to do with assassins and things like that. The only difference is that the story is being told from the perspective of someone who isn't an assassin, i.e. Edward. If this were a game about us playing as Mary, then we would be playing from her perspective. And if we were, it would be more in line with what was expected of an Assassin's Creed game. But they decided simply to tell the story from a different person's perspective, i.e. someone who's not a Templar. Not an assassin, and not even a Templar. Edward may be a pirate, but that fact doesn't take away from the presence of the assassins and the lessons that are being conveyed to Edward by Mary about the Creed. Those elements are what's more important. And even if Edward doesn't follow the Creed, even if Edward isn't an assassin, the fact that we have a strong assassin presence in the narrative is enough and more important than having him be an actual assassin. And I think that's something that some people are very against the idea of, as if it's only an Assassin's Creed game simply based on whether or not your character is an assassin. Somehow, if you don't play as an assassin, it is inherently not an Assassin's Creed game. If I was making a game about plumbers, and there were no plumbers in it, and your character was a lawyer, then yes, it would be like, why are you even calling this a plumbing game if we're playing as a lawyer? That'd be a different story. And then you might say, well, in that case, if we're playing as a pirate and it's called Assassin's Creed, then that means that we're not playing an Assassin's Creed game then. So why are you playing as a pirate, not an assassin? If it was an Assassin's Creed game, we'd be playing as an assassin. Well, in that case, Assassin's Creed 3 is not an Assassin's Creed game because at some point we play as a Templar. If the only reason an Assassin's Creed game is an Assassin's Creed game because we play as an assassin for the whole game, then by default that means any point in the game where we play as someone who's not an assassin, that means that it's not an Assassin's Creed game anymore. And that's not the case. And so because this game still has a strong assassin and Templar presence, and there's characters in the story that are assassins and are Templars, and the fact that Edward is interacting with these characters, and ultimately his character arc is tied to the assassins and the Templars, and all of that kind of stuff, and these lines of dialogue, and all this kind of stuff. This is still an Assassin's Creed game. It's just that we are playing as a pirate who is looking at the assassins and the Templars from their perspective, who is wearing the outfit and is using a hidden blade. But the outfit of the assassin and the hidden blade itself are not the sole things that make an assassin an assassin. Therefore, they're not the sole thing that makes an Assassin's Creed game an Assassin's Creed game. There's definitely a lot of elements to it. Overall, though, if you're someone who doesn't like pirates and doesn't like the pirate era, then that's understandable to not like this game and not like playing as a pirate and not like the naval stuff, because you're more concerned about the assassins than you are about the actual being a pirate. It's the same with Valhalla. You know, there's people who don't care for not playing as an assassin because they're playing as a Viking. So it's like, we don't like that game as an Assassin's Creed game because we're playing as a Viking, not an assassin. So therefore we don't accept it as an Assassin's Creed game. Same with Odyssey. You know, you play as a mercenary. But that's a bit different, I guess, because in that game, the assassins don't actually exist yet, as we know them to be after the Hidden Ones are formed, at the very least. But yeah, Mary's a very important character, a very important assassin in the story. And because we're playing as Edward, who's a pirate, we're seeing things from his perspective, which in turn allows for people who hadn't played the previous games before this one to still be able to understand the story and learn about the assassins and learn about the Templars and learn about the Creed. So what Mary says to Edward is as much teaching him about the assassins as it is teaching new people to the series about the assassins as well. And that's another thing too, the fact that Mary is an assassin and that there's assassins in this game and that there is a strong presence of them in the narrative. And a lot of what Edward ends up doing is related heavily to the Assassins and the Templar conflict and all that kind of stuff. This is definitely a great game to sink your teeth into if you're new to the series. It doesn't require you to know everything that's happened in the previous games to actually understand anything. Even when there's a character mentioned, like at the end of this game, Artabai mentions Altair. You don't have to know who that is to understand the game. You can still understand the game perfectly without even knowing who Altair is and things like that. So it's one of those really cool games that I definitely recommend people, if this one interests you more than the older ones before this one, this is still a good starting off point with the series as well, because it gives you an understanding of the Assassins and the Templars. It's just that we're playing as a pirate named Edward Kenway. And if you look at him as a pirate, and you look at the Assassins, there's a bit of a connection between the idea of the Assassins wanting to fight for freedom and pirates wanting to be free and exercise their freedoms. It's just that the Assassins caution that you may be free to do as you wish, but don't expect to not have repercussions for doing something terrible if you do something terrible. You can't hide behind, I'm a pirate. I should get off free for doing something terrible. Because pirates do that, right? That's where they sort of differ in their ideologies. But there's aspects to the creed that, when taken literally, like everything is permitted, Edward, as a pirate, is living that to its fullest. But the Assassins aren't supposed to literally live like that. It's supposed to be an understanding. And as Mary says, the whole thing about nothing is true and everything is permitted is to be looked at from the point of wisdom rather than a call to action necessarily, or something that can justify doing something. So if you see someone and you kill them as an assassin and they did nothing wrong to anyone, then you as the assassin, you might be exercising an action that simply literally taking everything is permitted might cover, but you're still doing something that will have a repercussion, i.e., you'll eventually get your comeuppance for it, so to speak. So it's not meant to be taken literally, but Edward has been taking it literally. And there's several interactions where Edward responds with dialogue and in such a way that he's like, so, everything is permitted after all, right? So if everything's permitted, I can just do what I want, right? And it's like, no. Is not to be taken literally. So there's plenty of lessons that Edward is learning along the way. Some that he's not receptive to yet, some that he's scoffing at, some that he's not taking seriously and laughing off, and all that kind of stuff. But he is getting lessons about the Assassins and the Creed and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Mary Read is definitely a great character, and if we were playing as her for the whole game, then the story would be told in a different way. Like, we would not see things happening from Edward's point of view or even witness events that he experiences. We'd be experiencing the memories of Mary, and we would be seeing what she saw. So in moments where she's off doing her missions, we wouldn't see Edward if her mission was somewhere where he's not, We'd see what was happening in her life at that time, and we'd see events that we only hear about, but we would actually see them literally. And I was saying in yesterday's stream, one of them at least, because I did two separate ones, I was saying how I would love, and I still think they can, I would love for them to do an Assassin's Creed game about Mary, from the beginning of when she became an assassin to showing events from her perspective that Edward was involved in, but also having us play events that we don't actually witness. And fill in some blanks and all that kind of stuff. So I think that'd be really cool for them to do that. But I don't think they will. I'm sure that they won't ever. But that's one of the things about a long-running series, is that eventually you get to a point where you have to be kind of like realistic with your expectations and hopes for things. And you might feel passionately about a certain character or a certain story, but that doesn't mean that the powers that be who have control over the series are going to agree with you and even care themselves as well. And as a fan of any series where you get so passionate about it, you would love to see certain things come to fruition. You need to remember that you're not in any way, shape, or form able to, influence what Assassin's Creed games get made. You can be as loud as you want about a certain character getting their own game, but unless the money is seen to be made, and unless the people in charge agree and see that too and actually want to do it, you'll never see it happen. And so I think seeing a game where we play as Mary Read is probably never going to happen. And the cynical side of me is, if we ever do, they'll probably fuck it up somehow. But one can dream, one can hope. It'd be cool to have a game like that.
I'd love to hear it.
Nothing is true. Everything is permitted. This is the world's only certainty.
Everything is permitted. I like the sound of that. Thinking what I like and acting how I please.
You parrot the words, but you do not understand.
Don't get haughty with me, kid. I followed you as a friend, and you tricked me.
I saved your skin bringing you here, man. These men wanted you dead for what you did in Havana. I talked him out of it.
Well, cheers for that.
Aye. Cheers.
It's interesting, that last part there, because the way that Mary says, "I, cheers," to me at least, I interpret it as Edward is basically not necessarily taking fully seriously how close he came to getting killed by them, and he's basically just like, cheers for that. Still not taking it seriously, whereas Mary's like, "I, cheers," as if to say, yeah, you might try to treat it as if it wasn't that important, but it actually was, down to the wire there. You could have literally been killed by them, if not for, me helping and me having some kind of, sway towards that as well. That's at least how I interpret that. Maybe there's a different actual meaning for that sort of like way that Mary said cheers in that moment. And when Edward hears, nothing is true, everything is permitted, he of course is like, I like the sound of that, thinking as I please, doing as I wish, that kind of thing. But he's not taking it seriously, he's still sort of like laughing it off or making light of it. And that's why Mary is like, you parrot the words, but you don't understand them, which has a bigger implication. It's like, you may know the words of the creed, but that doesn't mean you understand them. And part of understanding is to actually take the time to invest in the thing, to learn about it as well. And Edward is kind of like thinking, oh yeah, everything is permitted, hey? That's really cool. I like the sound of that, without actually thinking about it and going, so what does this actually mean? What are the repercussions of me actually thinking this way versus what way it's supposed to be interpreted, and the way that Mary is hoping that Edward would actually interpret it, but doesn't, and all that kind of stuff. And like with the leap of faith in Assassin's Creed Valhalla being something that Eivor has to learn, it's another aspect that goes along with being an assassin, the leap of faith, but also the understanding of things. There's a certain reasoning for doing the leap of faith that's more than just a practical and quick way to get down from somewhere. There's actually a thought process behind it, and there's meaning behind that. Something more under the surface. But if you're looking at things at just a surface level, they're things that can be overlooked and not noticed. But yeah, Edward is definitely still, at this point in his story arc, not taking the assassins seriously, and not taking the actions that he's done as being serious enough to cause him any concern. It's just like, oh, so I killed this assassin. I killed your assassin friends. I was doing it for money, you know? And in some ways you might say, well, that's more of a Templar kind of thing. And that's the other point in this game as well. You know, not only is Edward being exposed to the assassins, of course, he's also being exposed to the Templars and the way that they do things and their thinking and all that kind of stuff. And they well and truly could have done a story where at the end of this story, Edward becomes a Templar. They could have done that if they wanted to. But ultimately in the lore, for those who don't know what happens after this game, Edward does actually become an assassin. It's something that he actually officially becomes. It's not something that never happens. It's just that we don't see it happen in this game. It's not like there's a scene where they're like, Edward's like, right, I commit to being an assassin now. And they're like, cool, you're now an assassin. Here's an initiation process. Here's the ceremony. Do the leap of faith. Cool, now you're an assassin. Now you're one of us. You know, you're officially an assassin. There's no scene like that in the actual game's narrative. But towards the end of the story, Edward does start to act more like an assassin. Or like an assassin should. And he's way more receptive to the nothing is true, everything is permitted. And his questioning of that comes from a place of wanting to understand, not from scoffing at it or thinking of it as it's not a serious thing like he does at this point in the story. Stan, that's very Mr. Krabs of you, Edward. Mr. Krabs with the money. And with Dutch in Red Dead 2, the money. It's like someone who has been a part of your gang for 20 years is trying to advise you against following the advice of someone who's only been with the gang for 6 months or more. And Dutch is like, I don't care, we need money. If we lose some people along the way, oh well. As long as we get that money.
The way forward's blocked.
That's a door, I reckon.
Aye. And there should be some way to open it. A mechanism somewhere.
Like a capstan.
Those blocks up there. Try moving them.
Just want to hang back for any extra dialogue.
Those blocks up there seem like they might move with a bit of weight.
Alright. No extra dialogue anymore. It's so weird doing this without the music, which is on purpose, but for this particular playthrough I wanted to just have the dialogue and sound effects be what gets heard, just in case there's any dialogue that can get drowned out by the music. Plus it also makes things more keenly focused on the dialogue as opposed to music.
Oh, damn it!
Easy, Kenway. This ain't like climbing Ratlands.
So it's you lot them Templars have been chasing then?
Until you came along and mucked things up, it was us chasing them. We had them running scared. But they have the upper hand now.
That's one of the early repercussions that Edward hears about because of his actions. The fact that if not for Edward carrying out the traitor assassin Duncan Walpole's mission of delivering the letters and the map and the glass vial to the Templars, therefore securing his allegiance with the Templars and defecting to them, if Edward hadn't actually carried out that, then the Templars would still be behind in the overall quote-unquote race for the observatory, and the assassins would still have the advantage. But because of Edward's actions, he's allowed the Templars to get the upper hand over the assassins now, instead of them having the upper hand over the Templars. But the repercussions are definitely way more severe than that.
The door's mechanism seems to be broke. Let's find another way around. Follow on, man. Jump!
Just hang back for any extra dialogue for a moment. When I first played this game, because I hadn't played Liberation, I just assumed that this was the first Assassin's Creed game that allowed you to actually swim deep underwater like this. But it wasn't until I played Liberation for the first time in 2018, because of the remaster, I was like, oh, so that's the game that introduced the ability to actually go swimming underwater like this, not Black Flag.
You're still drawing breath?
Enough to curse you with, kid! Must be a great treasure beyond.
Treasure? Right.
Whatever's waiting at the end of this path had better be worth my time.
That'll depend on you.
How's that?
What I'm taking you to see may spin your head right round. I only hope you could take the shock of it.
I can handle myself.
In the previous phase, I did a showcase playthrough where I would go through the game's environments and show off different aspects of them, move the camera around slowly, leave it in certain camera angles, and have a good look around at things and all that kind of stuff. And it was really cool to do something like that, because I've never really done that with the Assassin's Creed games before, at least to that extent, taking so much time to examine things like that. But it's a good way to sort of like appreciate how much effort goes into the creation of so much of the environments and the textures and the details and all that kind of stuff.
Is this it then? The grand prize your mentor asked me to see. Looks nothing like the man they called the Sage, I'm sorry to say.
Keep your trousers tied up. We've one more riddle to solve. These statues are like the ones we've seen before, but with pictures carved on them.
There's pictures carved on the floor as well, but none of the same sort.
There's a correspondence then. But what?
Just wanted to pause it there for a moment. Okay, so as we can see in the back there, you can see that there's a face on the wall. And through solving this puzzle, we will reveal each layer underneath one by one. And then it will actually show what the statue all the way behind those two walls actually looks like. For this part here, there's a lot of dialogue that plays. Because I want to get as much dialogue in memories, i.e. story missions, as much as possible, it means that I even want to get dialogue where the character might be saying, hey, how about you jump up on that? So to that end, just a heads up, I do know what I need to do here. I know what I need to match to what. The only reason I'm not doing straight away what I know I need to do is simply and purely just for the dialogue side of things. So I just wanted to lay that out, just in case someone is like, how come you're not doing what you need to do straight away? It's only because I'm wanting to get as much dialogue as possible. When it starts to be looped dialogue that we've already heard more than once, that's when I'll actually stop and doing things. That's when I'll actually stop not doing stuff and actually start doing things.
There's a difference between them animals on the statues and them on the floor. Do you see it?
Aye, one group is predators, the other is prey.
Which predator goes with which prey? That's the question.
Right, there's your correspondence. Match a predator with its prey.
Might be you can use the lever to move them drawings on the ground.
I was just about to say the same.
Shall we climb these stones here? Seems like they might move. Clamber up those stones, can we? I've an idea. Shall we climb these stones here? Seems like they might move. Might be those stones are counterweights. Lend me a hand here, will you? Shall we climb these stones here? Seems like they might move. Not so much.
Hey, it's a Mayan Homer Simpson. Oh.
Jesus, that's him, the sage. But this thing must be hundreds of years old.
Older still. You're certain it's him?
Aye. It's the eyes that mark him.
Did the Templars say why they wanted this sage?
They drew some of his blood into this small glass cube.
Like this one?
Aye. They meant to ask him about the observatory too, but he escaped.
Huh. We're finished here.
All right, so there we have the statue of the sage, and the fact that the sage statue has him with a mustache, and the shape of his face, and everything like that. The idea behind the sage is that when the sage is reborn, he looks the same, has the same facial features, has the same bone structure in the face, all that kind of stuff. After this game, though, not every single sage actually has the exact same character face model as is showed in Black Flag. So the way that the sage looks in this game, whether it's the statue of him that we see, whether it's Bartholomew Roberts that we see, whether it's John Standish in present day that we see, the IT guy, they all have the same face model. Hair's a bit different. The present day sage is wearing a different hairstyle than Bartholomew Roberts is wearing. But Bartholomew Roberts has a mustache, and John Standish has a mustache. The face model is the exact same, and that matches the statue. The key thing, though, that is more important than those elements is his eyes being two different colors. So the fact that the sage in all the games that a sage appears in doesn't look exactly like the sage or the sages that we see in this game. They all have different eye colors. One eye is different color to the other. And so that marking in and of itself is the one that's more important. So whether or not they have a mustache is irrelevant. For example, in Assassin's Creed Unity, Germain doesn't have a mustache, but he's a sage. In Assassin's Creed Syndicate, there's a sage in the World War I sequences. I think he has a mustache, but he doesn't look exact. His face model is very different to Bartholomew Roberts and Germain as well. He appears in Assassin's Creed Odyssey in the Fate of Atlantis DLC, but he has no beard in that at all. But he does have the different colored eyes, and his face model is completely different. But the more important thing is that his eyes are a different color, and that's the distinguishing feature that Edward was referring to when he said it's the eyes that mark him. And from a realistic point of view, if they were trying to say that all the sages looked alike, if we were thinking of it realistically, and someone could be reborn multiple times and look the same, that they would literally look the same. They wouldn't have different facial features and stuff like that. But the way that it works in the games, in terms of like the in-universe lore, is that it's the eyes that are the main thing that indicate whether or not someone is a sage, not the fact that they don't all have the same facial structure and the same character model.
What the hell did I just see back there? Jim!
Overrun and outnumbered. Alright, so we're still in sequence 4. We're in memory 4. We did memory 3. And memory 3 was the Sage's Buried Secret, in which Edward and James searched the Mayan temple for clues about the Sage's identity. What I want to do, though, is I want to actually take a break. But at the same time, I also want to end the stream while I'm on that break. Something that I've started to do this year, and depending on how it actually ends up going overall, which I'm going to give it time, I want to actually not have my streams be one big giant stream in one session, i.e. doing, like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 hours in one big chunk. But I'm also starting to think in terms of like making things more, I guess, bite-sized in a way for people who might be watching the VODs and stuff like that. So what I've been doing lately is only been doing between 2 to 3 hours. But sometimes I've done a stream session, like yesterday I almost did a 5-hour one. I was trying to keep it under 5 hours, and I still did, but I was hoping that the amount of time that I would stream per stream would be 3.5, maybe 4 hours pushing it. And I want to actually take a break and stop the stream here as well. It's almost 3 hours and 30 minutes stream, but I will be coming back. This isn't the final stream for today for Black Flag. I want to take a break and then come back with the next part. So what I might do is, instead of actually going back to the main menu and the next stream starting with my intro and all that kind of stuff, I'll still do an intro as in, hello, welcome to the stream and all that kind of stuff. but I won't do it from the main menu and do all that kind of stuff. So what I'm going to do is just go to yeah, I might just go to exit the Animus, and then keep it on this screen, and then when I start the next stream, because I'm not going to worry about shutting the game down and all that kind of stuff while I go on my break, but I'll just have that screen still on, so that at the start of the next stream, when I've come back from my break, we can just jump straight into the Animus, and then I'll do a sequence recap and all that kind of stuff. Tech, alright Rod, great stream as always. You're headed to bed, it's 5:34 EST. That's absolutely no trouble at all. Thank you so much, Tech, for being here. I really hope that you have a great sleep. Amateur Tech is doing a playthrough of the Tomb Raider series at the moment. If you're looking for a streamer who's doing a series run, maybe if you haven't seen a Tomb Raider game being streamed before, and maybe you haven't played some of the older games or seen them streamed, but he's going through the main entries in the series. So he's played through Tomb Raider 1, Tomb Raider 2, 3, The Adventures of Lara Croft, and Tomb Raider The Last Revelation, which is basically Tomb Raider 4. And he's now playing through Tomb Raider Chronicles, and that's the 5th entry. And then when he's actually finished Chronicles, that'll be the end of what many people call the PS1 era, even though those games did come out for PC and Dreamcast as well. I'm pretty sure it was Dreamcast. But the next game after Chronicles that he'll be doing is Angel of Darkness, and that one came out for the PS2 in terms of consoles. So we'll be playing that as well. And then there were 3 games in a new trilogy, starting with Legend. So he'll be doing Legend, and then Anniversary, which is a remake of Tomb Raider 1, and a prequel to Legend, but in terms of release order, it came out after Legend, and also doing Underworld. And that caps off that trilogy of games. And then the reboot trilogy, which started in 2013 with the 2013 game just titled Tomb Raider. He'll be playing that as well, and its 2 sequels, Rise of the Tomb Raider and Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So he's doing a big series run of Tomb Raider, so I highly recommend checking out Tech's channel. No worries for the shout out, Tech. Absolutely no worries at all. More than happy to give you one. And thank you so much for being here. I really hope that you have a good one. Enjoy your rest. Definitely catch you again soon. This is where I'm going to end this stream. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to take a, let's see, I might take, I think I might take a, it's almost, let's see, it's almost 10 p.m. here. It's almost 22. So I think what I might do is just take a, let's say, I might take a 15-minute break. Because if I'm going to stream until after midnight, it'll be good to have a little bit of a longer break than 10 minutes. So I'm going to have a 15-minute break, and I'll be back with more Assassin's Creed Black Flag. For those who can't make it to the next stream live, that's completely fine. Thank you so much for watching this one. I haven't figured out what streams I want to do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday yet, i.e. what games. So that's still tentative at the moment. So if you see me streaming a game that's not Black Flag, then you know it's become Monday, if you don't catch the next stream in 15 minutes. But thanks everyone for watching. I'll be back then to continue Phase 6, Story Focus of Black Flag. Thank you, Tech. I definitely will, that's for sure. I'll leave a pinned message up to the top as well on the break, which is actually good too, because it's got a timer that I can set, which actually works out well. Thanks everyone for watching. For those who will be able to come back in the next 15 minutes, I'll see you then. For those who might not be able to, thanks for watching this one, and catch you in a future stream.